Each year, the Office of Special Services at the Maine Department of Education submits an annual performance report to the Federal Office of Special Education Programs, known as OSEP. The annual performance report is often referred to as the APR, and it is a requirement of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. The APR is a package of multiple reports called indicators, and each indicator is a report of the state's performance in various areas for students that receive special education. The areas are determined by OSEP, and they include graduation rates, dropout rates, performance on statewide examinations for math and language arts, and other areas. States are required to monitor and report on their progress in each of the areas, and states are also required to set annual targets for improvement and identify strategies to meet those targets. All states are required to include targets for the next 6 years. The next APR that we will submit to OSEP is due in February of 2022 and will include all 17 indicators, some with new targets. States are also required to gather stakeholder input in setting the targets for all performance indicators and in devising strategies to meet the targets. Your input is critical to ensure that the APR reflects the priorities of all stakeholders. These recordings and the associated surveys are one way we are gathering input on Maine's current and future performance. SPP APR development must include a description of how the department will seek broad stakeholder input on the state's targets, any revisions that the state has made, and the development and implementation of Indicator 17. For each indicator, the department needs to include a description of how the state received feedback on target setting, developing improvement strategies, and evaluating progress from the parent members of the State Advisory Panel, Parent Center staff, parents from local and statewide advocacy and advisory committees, and individual parents. The APR must also describe the activities the state conducted to increase the number of diverse groups of parents to support the development and implementation of activities designed to improve outcomes for children and youth with disabilities. Each indicator will have its own video and survey for you to provide input. The videos will briefly describe each indicator, and we are asking you to watch the videos, then complete the corresponding surveys. There are a total of 17 indicators. Indicator 1 looks at the graduation rate for students with disabilities. This is the percent of students with IEPs who graduate with a regular high school diploma each year. OSEP looks only at the 4-year graduation rate, so students who take longer than 4 years to graduate are not included in the graduation percentage. Indicator 2 looks at dropout rate. This is the dropout percentage for students with IEPs ages 14 through 21. The percentage is based on all students with IEPs who exited school in that age range. Indicator 3 looks at participation and performance on the statewide math and English language arts assessments. This one has 4 parts. 3A looks at participation rates for students with IEPs in the statewide assessments. 3B looks at proficiency rate for children with IEPs regarding their grade level standards. 3C looks at the proficiency rate for children with IEPs regarding alternate assessment. And 3D looks at proficiency gaps for the math and English assessments for students with disabilities when compared to the rates of all students. Indicator 4 looks at the yearly rates of suspensions and expulsions and is made up of 2 parts. 4A looks at the overall suspension-expulsion rates for students with IEPs, and 4B looks at discrepancies in the suspension-expulsion rate when considering the student's race and ethnicity. Indicator 5 looks at educational environments for school-age students and has 3 parts. 5A looks at students educated inside the regular classroom over 80% of the day. 5B looks at students educated inside the regular classroom less than 40% of the day. And 5C looks at students educated in separate schools or other facilities. Indicator 6 reflects the type of preschool programs students with IEPs, ages 3, 4, and 5, are enrolled in. It has 3 parts. 6A includes those that are receiving special education and services in a regular early childhood program. 6B includes those attending separate special education classes, separate schools, or residential facilities. And 6C includes those receiving special education and related services in their home. Indicator 7 looks at preschool outcomes and has 3 parts. It consists of the percent of children, ages 3 through 5, who demonstrate 7A, improved social emotional skills, 7B, improved acquisition and use of knowledge and skills, including early language, and 7C, appropriate behaviors. Indicator 8 deals with parent or guardian satisfaction with schools regarding the IEP process and how they feel about their level of involvement. Indicator 9 looks at whether races or ethnicities are significantly overrepresented among students with IEPs. Indicator 10 looks at unequal representation within specific disability categories due to inappropriate identification. Indicator 11 looks at the percent of children, birth to 5, who were evaluated within 60 days after parental consent or within the state-established timeline. Indicator 12 is early childhood transition. This is the percent of students who are referred from Part C, birth to 3, to Part B 619, ages 3 to 5, and have an IEP developed by their 3rd birthday. Indicator 13 looks at the quality of students' secondary transition plans to be started at age 14 or 9th grade to make sure they have all the required elements. Indicator 14 looks at post-secondary outcomes and has 3 parts. 14A is the percent of students enrolled in higher education. 14B is the percent of students enrolled in higher education or competitively employed. And 14C is the percent of students enrolled in higher education, other post-secondary education, training program, competitively employed, or some other employment within 1 year of leaving high school. Indicators 15 and 16 are dispute resolution indicators. 15 looks at the number of settlements that are reached out of all resolution sessions, and 16 looks at the number of mediations that result in agreements. The last indicator, 17, is known as the State Systemic Improvement Plan, SIP, and it's an initiative that each state chooses. Maine's SIP is our Math for Me program that provides professional development for teaching math to students with disabilities. States set their own targets for this indicator. We have created a series of short videos and surveys that correspond to each of these indicators, and we need your input to help improve education for every student in Maine.